Welcome to the International Hypnosis Research Institute's mini-course entitled 4 Historical Events That Shaped How Therapists Think. I'm Tim Brunson, the Institute's founder and executive director, and your host. In my courses, I talk about how transformation requires an antithetical event, which is so significant as to induce a change that overcomes inertia. Therefore, if one applies this concept to Western history, the question should be, what antithetical events shaped our current way of thinking? So for the next few moments, I'm going to step outside the world of hypnosis and focus on 4 major antithetical changes that have influenced the mind of Western culture. These 4 are the mind-body schism of 1350, the reading revolution, the rise of Newtonian mathematics, and the emergence of the subconscious mind philosophy. One of the greatest antithetical events which contributed to how we think today occurred almost 700 years ago. Peaking between 1348 and 1350, one of the most devastating pandemics in human history hit Europe. It is estimated to have killed between 30 to 60% of Europe's population and lasted almost 150 years. Prior to that, conceptually science and religion were one and controlled by the church. It was not uncommon for relatively simple phenomena, such as gravity, to be described in terms of man's relationship to God. In fact, it was commonly accepted that gravity was a condition caused by sinning against God's will. The church's intellectual hold, which most definitely was a resisting pattern, was shattered by the Black Death. Its social, intellectual, and scientific legacy created the environment for the European Renaissance. One extremely important manifestation was that the church continued to predominate when it came to the unseen. Emerging scientific methodologies dominated the world of the seen. The effects of what I call the mind-body schism of 1350 can be seen in every one of the world's current universities. Another notable event that also struck a blow at the foundation of the church's dominance was the invention of the printing press. Almost 100 years after the Black Death, the German Johannes Gutenberg's press allowed for mass replication of the written word, freeing society from the church's control and interpretation of written literature. Even though this helped spawn the Protestant Reformation in the following century, this invention created the movement toward universal literacy and public education. This reading revolution allowed the common person to begin acquiring knowledge and making their own interpretations. Strangely enough, it was about 100 years after the Protestant Reformation, a plague was to again set the stage for yet another antithetical event. This was when the Great Plague of 1665 hit England. When this led to the brief closing of the University of Cambridge, one scholar, who was to become its most famous alumni, went home to his father's estate in Surrey. It was during that time that young Isaac Newton began pondering the mathematical principles that tend to explain the universe. His most important book, the title of which translates as Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, remains one of the most important scientific books ever written. In it, he described universal gravitation and the laws of motion, ideas which dominated the view of the physical universe for the next several centuries, at least until Albert Einstein came along. Additionally, the mind-body schism that started in the mid-14th century was pretty much solidified by Newton's ideas, which accelerated the predominance of the scientific revolution. The fourth major antithetical event was one that will most likely surprise you. While the others tend to move in the direction of supporting scientific thinking, this one attempted to explain the unseen, albeit in a non-religious manner. Friedrich Schiller was one of the German idealist philosophers, who, by the way, once shared an apartment with Friedrich Hegel, another German idealist, from whom I derived the antithetical concept. In his attempt to explain human nature, Schiller came up with the notion that there must be something other than conscious awareness at work. This line of reasoning was later expanded by another, most noticeably the Austrian doctor, Sigmund Freud. Freud created an entire field that relied almost entirely on the analysis and explanation of the functioning of what he called the unconscious mind. Since then, others have come to call this phenomena the subconscious mind. The concept of the existence of a subconscious mind has become an a priori truth that permeates the Western science of the mind, which has been given the name psychology. Despite its unscientific origin, it has been somehow merged with scientific thinking. During my early training in neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy, I was taught that my role called upon me to facilitate the restructuring of a person's subconscious mind. However, when it came time for me to explain and cite the concept as part of my dissertation on the neurology of suggestion, I was quickly dismayed that much of my training was based upon an assumption that had never been adequately explained. As I have discussed in other courses, I have striven to describe the functioning of Schiller's idea. However, I have done so in terms of pattern theory and multiple intelligences. Indeed, over the past 10 or so centuries, there have been a multitude of antithetical events which have shaped the world in which we practice hypnotherapy. Regardless, the four that I have highlighted are the most relevant if your goal is to fully understand where we are today and where we most likely are headed over the immediate horizon. I hope that you've enjoyed these ideas. These are some of the concepts which I share with students of the various Institute courses. Courses can be taken individually through courses.hypnosisresearchinstitute.org or as a part of the Advanced Neuronoetic Hypnosis Certification Program, which leads to the earning of the Advanced Certified Clinical Hypnotherapist designation. You can get additional information on the ACCH program at www.advanced-neuro-noetic-hypnosis.org. 4 Historical Events That Shape How Therapists Think is copyright 2011, the International Hypnosis Research Institute. However, please feel free to share this with your friends and colleagues.